The first time my mother-in-law called my garden lifeless, I was elbow-deep in rich, dark soil, planting the heirloom tomato seedlings that would later win first place at the county fair. Not that she ever acknowledged that victory. I'm Prudence, and for the past 5 years, I've been the family disappointment of the prestigious Wilkins clan, the girl who married their golden boy Donovan and dared to prefer dirt under her fingernails to designer manicures. Darling, wouldn't you rather join us for brunch at the club? Adeline's voice dripped with familiar condescension as she peered over our shared fence, her tennis whites spotless despite the morning heat. This hobby of yours is hardly becoming of a Wilkins woman. I smiled, remembering my grandmother's words. Kill them with kindness, then watch them squirm when they can't break you. Thanks, Adeline, but these seedlings won't plant themselves. Maybe next time? I turned back to my work, hiding my satisfaction as she huffed away. Later that evening, Donovan found me in my greenhouse, checking on my experimental hydroponic setup. Mom's on the warpath again, he warned, wrapping his arms around my waist. Lexus told her you declined the country club committee position. Because I was launching my organic delivery service, I reminded him, which, by the way, just landed its first restaurant contract. I know, love. I'm proud of you. He kissed my temple. They just don't understand why you'd choose this over their world. Their world of charity galas and trophy wives? I gestured to my thriving urban garden, where neat rows of vegetables stretched toward the setting sun. This is real, Donovan. This matters. A sharp knock interrupted us. Lexus stood at the greenhouse door, her designer heels sinking slightly into the mulch path. Emergency family meeting, she announced, not bothering to hide her smirk. Daddy wants to discuss the property's potential. I caught the predatory gleam in her eye, and something cold settled in my stomach. 5 years of snide comments and barely veiled insults had taught me to recognize danger when I saw it. We'll be right there, I said, already reaching for my phone to text Lena. My best friend had warned me this might happen, had helped me prepare for it. As I followed Donovan toward the main house, I paused to touch the small wooden sign marking my garden's entrance. Prudence's Paradise, it read. The words burned deep into reclaimed cedar. Below them, in smaller letters, was the registration number for my officially licensed agricultural business. Let them scheme. I'd learned long ago that the sweetest revenge grows slowly, nurtured by patience and fed by underestimation. Like my prize-winning tomatoes, this would be worth the wait. The family meeting room felt suffocating, with its mahogany panels and judgmental portraits of Wilkins' ancestors staring down at me. I sat beside Donovan, watching Lexus pace in her Louboutins, while Clifford settled into his leather chair. We need to discuss the garden situation, Adeline announced, perching on the armrest of her husband's chair. It's becoming problematic. Problematic? I echoed, keeping my voice neutral. The restaurant seemed to disagree. I've just signed 3 more contracts this month. Lexus stopped pacing. That's exactly the issue. You're running a commercial operation in our family compound. It's unseemly. Our compound? Donovan interjected. The garden plot is part of our house deed. Details. Adeline waved her hand dismissively. We're family. Everything here is family property. And speaking of family, we've had an interesting proposition from the Highland Country Club. I felt my muscles tense. Here it comes. They're launching a farm-to-table initiative, Lexus continued, practically glowing. Very exclusive, very profitable. They're looking for local suppliers, and naturally, they approached us first. Us? I raised an eyebrow. The Wilkins family, Clifford spoke for the first time. We could command premium prices. Your garden could finally contribute meaningfully to the family portfolio. My garden already contributes meaningfully to my portfolio, I corrected him. Don't be difficult, dear, Adeline sighed. We're trying to help you become a real part of this family. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood. I need some air. Instead of heading outside, I ducked into the powder room, pulling out my phone to text Lena. It's happening. They want to take over. Her response was immediate. Remember the documents? Safe in the greenhouse safe, I typed back. Voices drifted through the ventilation system from the study next door. I froze, listening. She's being ridiculous, Lexus hissed. We don't need her permission. Once we start selling to the club, what's she going to do? Stop us? The contracts are already signed, Adeline added. The first delivery is scheduled for next week. She'll have to fall in line. And if she doesn't? Clifford's voice was gruff. Then we remind her who really holds the power in this family, Lexus replied. I've already spoken to the landscapers. One call, and that precious garden of hers becomes a parking lot. My hands shook as I typed another message to Lena. Need that lawyer, now. I stepped out of the powder room just as Donovan came looking for me. Are you okay? Perfect, I smiled, though my heart was racing. Just perfect. Tell them I'm not feeling well. I need to check on something in the greenhouse. They had no idea what they just started, or what I was about to finish. They did what? Lena slammed her coffee mug down, making heads turn in the small cafe. Without even asking you? Keep your voice down. I glanced around nervously. But yes, they've already signed contracts using my produce. That's straight up illegal. Lena pulled out her laptop. Good thing we registered your business properly last month. Show me those property documents again. I slid the folder across the table. 3 years of careful planning, hidden in manila paper. Look at this. Lena pointed to a clause, her legal training kicking in. The garden plot isn't just part of your house deed. It's registered as an independent agricultural zone. They can't touch it without your explicit permission. My phone buzzed. A text from Donovan. Where are you? Mom's organizing a photo shoot in the garden for the Country Club magazine. They're moving fast. I showed Lena the message. Then we move faster. She started typing. I'm filing an immediate cease and desist. They can't sell your produce without proper licensing and your consent. Another buzz. This time from Lexus. Don't bother coming to the photo shoot. We've got it handled. The landscapers are removing those ugly tomato cages. I jumped up, nearly knocking over my coffee. They're in my garden right now. Perfect. Lena grinned. Document everything. Take videos. The more evidence, the better. I raced home, finding exactly what I'd expected. Adeline directed workers, while Lexus posed beside my prize vegetables, both wearing gardening hats that still had price tags dangling. What's going on here? I demanded, phone recording in my pocket. Oh, Prudence. Adeline smiled condescendingly. We're just upgrading things a bit, making it more presentable. By destroying my licensed agricultural business, I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag. These vegetables are my intellectual property. Those tomatoes, patented hybrid varieties I developed. The irrigation system, registered design. Don't be dramatic, Lexus scoffed. It's just a garden. Actually, a new voice cut in. Lena strode up the path, her heels clicking purposefully. It's a registered agricultural enterprise with existing contracts and protected varieties. I've just filed an emergency injunction against your planned sale of unlicensed produce. You did what? Adeline's face reddened. And those workers? Lena pointed to the landscapers. They're trespassing on private property. Shall I call the police, or will you ask them to leave? The silence was deafening. Lexus's photographer lowered his camera slowly. This isn't over, Adeline hissed, storming off with Lexus in tow. No, I agreed, watching them retreat. It's just beginning. I turned to survey the damage to my garden, already planning how to document every scratch, every displaced plant. They'd finally shown their hand. Now it was my turn to play mine. Your zucchini crop looks amazing this year, Lexus commented sweetly at Sunday dinner, a complete turnaround from her previous disdain. The country club members would absolutely adore these. I speared a roasted vegetable on my fork. Funny you should mention that. I just signed an exclusive deal with Harvest and Vine Restaurant. They're taking my entire zucchini yield. Adeline's knife screeched against her plate. You did what? Business decisions? I shrugged, catching Donovan's suppressed smile. You understand? But the club, Lexus started. Speaking of business, Clifford interrupted. We need to discuss the family's financial strategy. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Later that night, Donovan paced our bedroom. They're planning something big. Dad pulled me aside after dinner. What did he say? They're talking about restructuring the family property holdings. Mom and Lexus have been meeting with lawyers. He ran his hands through his hair. Prue, I think they're trying to find a way around your ownership claims. Let them try. I showed him my phone, displaying an email from the state's agricultural board. I've been documenting everything, every trespassing incident, every attempt to interfere with my business. There's more, he hesitated. Lexus has been approaching your restaurant clients, offering them better deals on produce. She what? My hands clenched into fists. She's using the Wilkins name, claiming she's the real owner of the garden enterprise. A knock at our door made us both jump. Donovan opened it to find one of the housekeepers. Mrs. Prudence, I thought you should know. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. I overheard Ms. Lexus on the phone. She's arranged for delivery trucks to come tomorrow morning. They're planning to harvest everything while you're at the family meeting. My heart raced. Thank you, Maria. After she left, I called Lena. How quickly can you get that injunction enforced? Already on it, she replied. I've got the sheriff's office on standby. Just say when. I walked to the window, looking out at my garden in the moonlight. Security cameras glinted from strategic positions, another precaution Lena had insisted on. Prue? Donovan wrapped his arms around me. Whatever you're planning, I'm with you. Good, I turned to face him. Because tomorrow's going to be interesting. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Family financial meeting, 9 a.m. Below it was a message from Lexus. Don't be late. Daddy insists everyone attend. No excuses. I smiled, setting my alarm for 5 a.m. They thought they had me cornered, forced to choose between my garden and family obligations. They'd never seen me multitask. Tomorrow would change everything. At 8:45 a.m., I sat in the family meeting room, watching security camera feeds on my tablet. Right on schedule, 3 delivery trucks pulled up to the garden gate. Coffee, dear? Adeline offered, hovering nearby. You look tired. I'm fine. I accepted the cup, noting Lexus checking her watch every 30 seconds. Clifford cleared his throat. Let's begin. First agenda item, consolidating family assets. Excuse me. I raised my hand, eyes on my tablet. Before we start, you might want to see this. I turned the screen around, showing the live feed of police cars pulling up behind the delivery trucks. What is this? Lexus jumped up, her face pale. Funny story, I said, taking a sip of coffee. Those trucks? They're trying to steal produce from a licensed agricultural business. That's a felony. The room erupted. Adeline rushed to the window while Lexus frantically dialed her phone. Cancel it, she hissed into her phone. Get out of there now. Too late. I showed them another camera feed. Officers were already talking to the truck drivers, who were pointing toward the house. A sharp knock at the door made everyone freeze. Maria appeared, looking nervous. The police are here. They're asking for Ms. Lexus. This is ridiculous, Adeline snapped. Clifford, do something. But Clifford was staring at a document Donovan had just handed him. Is this accurate? He asked me quietly. Every word. The registration, the contracts, the documented attempts to steal my business. I met his eyes. The proof of Lexus approaching my clients under false pretenses. Another knock, more insistent this time. A police officer stood in the doorway. Ms. Lexus, we need to ask you some questions about attempted theft and business fraud. Fraud? Lexus laughed shrilly. This is a family matter. Family doesn't steal from family, I stood up. And family definitely doesn't try to destroy someone's legitimate business. My phone pinged. An email from the country club regarding unauthorized produce supply contract. I forwarded it to Lena with a quick message. Add it to the evidence file. You're choosing this path? Adeline asked, her voice trembling with rage. Over family? No, I corrected her. You chose this path when you decided my work wasn't worthy of respect. I'm just protecting what's mine. As Lexus left with the officers, Clifford remained silent, studying the documents. Finally, he looked up. It seems, he said slowly, we've underestimated you, Prudence. Yes, I agreed, gathering my things. You have. I walked out, leaving them with their coffee and shattered schemes. In my garden, the morning sun highlighted rows of thriving plants, living proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding, despite those who want to see you fail. The next family dinner was a battlefield of silence and clinking silverware. Lexus's empty chair screamed louder than any accusation. She's been released on bail, Adeline announced, breaking the tension. No thanks to some people at this table. Some people? I set down my fork. You mean the person whose business you tried to steal? We built this family's reputation over generations, she hissed, and you're destroying it with your vegetables. Actually, Donovan interrupted, Prue's garden was featured in Business Weekly yesterday. They're calling her an innovative force in urban agriculture. Clifford looked up sharply. The magazine mentioned our family? No, I smiled. Just my business, my achievements, my name. This ends now, Adeline stood, throwing her napkin down. We're contesting your ownership, our lawyers. We'll find everything in order, Lena's voice cut in as she strode into the dining room. Sorry to interrupt dinner, but this couldn't wait. How dare you barge in? Adeline started. Court orders tend to ignore social niceties. Lena placed a thick envelope on the table. This is a permanent injunction against any interference with Prudence's business. Plus, a restraining order keeping Lexus away from the garden and Prudence's clients. You can't be serious. Adeline's voice shook. The security footage was very serious, Lena replied, as were the documented attempts to sabotage contracts. The DA's quite interested in the pattern of harassment. Clifford picked up the envelope, reading silently. The ticking grandfather clock echoed through the room. Well played, he finally said, looking at me with something like respect. You've protected your interests thoroughly. I learned from the best, I met his gaze. This family taught me all about protecting assets. By destroying your sister-in-law's life? Adeline's voice cracked. Lexus destroyed her own life, Donovan spoke up. She chose to break the law. Get out, Adeline whispered. Both of you, get out of this house. Actually, Clifford's voice carried authority that silenced everyone. Nobody's leaving. Prudence, your business plan. The one in the magazine. Tell me more about your expansion ideas. Clifford! Adeline gasped. Enough. He silenced her with a look. We've underestimated our daughter-in-law for too long. That ends today. I pulled out my tablet, hands steady despite my racing heart. I've developed new hybrid varieties. Drought-resistant, perfect for urban farming. The patent applications are pending. And the market potential? Significant. I pulled up my projections, especially with the right investment partner. The grandfather clock kept ticking as Clifford studied my numbers. Adeline stood frozen, watching her world shift. Somewhere in the city, Lexus was probably plotting her revenge. But here, in this moment, everything was changing. And for once, I held the power to decide how. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Lexus's lawyer presented their case. My client acted within family interests, Your Honor. The garden was always intended as a shared family resource. A shared resource? Lena stood, her voice clear and confident. We have evidence of systematic harassment, attempted theft, and deliberate business interference. If I may present Exhibit A, security footage played on the courtroom screen. Lexus directing workers to harvest my produce, her phone calls to my clients, the attempted loading of delivery trucks. Furthermore, Lena continued, we have documented proof of Ms. Lexus impersonating my client to redirect contracts worth over $50,000. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Lexus, do you deny these allegations? Lexus glanced at Adeline in the gallery before standing. Your Honor, I was acting on behalf of family traditions. Prudence doesn't understand our ways. Your ways of stealing? I couldn't help interjecting. Order, the judge warned, then turned to Lexus. Family tradition does not override business law or property rights. If I may, Clifford's voice rang out as he stood in the gallery. I request permission to address the court. The judge nodded, and all eyes followed Clifford as he walked to the front. As head of the family, I've watched this situation develop. What my daughter did was wrong. What my wife encouraged was wrong. He turned to face me. Prudence has shown more business acumen and integrity than we gave her credit for. She's built something valuable, legitimate, and entirely her own. Adeline gasped audibly. Lexus's face turned pale. The family, Clifford continued, withdraws any claim to Prudence's enterprise. Furthermore, we'll cover all damages and legal fees incurred by her business due to these actions. The judge studied him for a moment. Ms. Lexus, do you understand that you're facing serious charges? Business fraud carries significant penalties. Lexus's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. She nodded slowly, defeated. Given Mr. Clifford's statement and the evidence presented, the judge announced, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff. Ms. Lexus will pay restitution, serve 2 years probation, and maintain distance from both the business premises and all associated clients. As the gavel struck, Lena squeezed my hand. We did it. I watched Lexus slump in her chair while Adeline hurried out of the courtroom. But it was Clifford who approached me. That offer to discuss investment opportunities, he said quietly. Is it still open? You want to invest, after everything? I recognize potential when I see it, even if it took me too long this time. He extended his hand. What do you say? Partners? I looked at his offered hand, thinking of all the times I'd wanted his approval. Now, finally, it came on my terms. Let's discuss it, I replied, shaking his hand. Over dinner, in my garden. The evening sun cast long shadows through my greenhouse as I showed Clifford the new hydroponic system. His investment had helped expand the operation beyond my wildest dreams. These tomatoes, he examined a cluster of perfectly ripe fruit. They're the patented variety? One of 3 new hybrids, I confirmed. The restaurant orders are already double what we projected. A knock on the greenhouse door interrupted us. Donovan entered, followed by Adeline. Mother? I hadn't seen her since the courthouse. I brought these. She held out a stack of worn notebooks. My grandmother's gardening journals. I found them in the attic. The silence stretched between us like a delicate seedling. She was quite successful, Adeline continued, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Had her own victory garden during the war. I never understood her passion for it, until I read these. Thank you. I took the notebooks carefully. Would you like to see what we're working on? She nodded, following me past rows of thriving plants. The magazine was right about you. You've built something remarkable here. We all have our talents, I replied, remembering all the times she'd dismissed mine. Some just take longer to recognize than others. Lexus called, Donovan mentioned, testing the waters. She's completed her business ethics course, asked if she could apologize in person. Maybe. I considered it. Once her probation ends. Clifford cleared his throat. Speaking of business, the Urban Farming Conference called. They want you to give the keynote speech. They what? Your methods are revolutionary. He gestured at the greenhouse. People want to learn from you, including me. A notification pinged on my tablet. Another restaurant wanting to set up a contract. Success, it seemed, was the sweetest revenge. I should go, Adeline said, pausing at the door. But perhaps I could come back. Learn about these hybrid varieties you're developing. I thought about karma, about cycles of growth and decay, about how sometimes the most stubborn weeds could transform into something beautiful. Sunday afternoons, I offered. That's when I do most of my experimental work. She smiled, a real smile, not her society mask, and nodded. After they left, Donovan and I walked through the garden as evening settled in. The motion-activated lights illuminated our path, glinting off the Prudence's Paradise sign. "Happy?" he asked, squeezing my hand. I looked at my thriving garden, remembering the days when it was just a dream and a handful of seeds. Now it was an empire built on determination, spite, and ultimately growth, not just of plants, but of people. "Yes," I answered, and meant it. "Though we might need a bigger sign,